Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
You want burgers, hot dogs, some chicken, and ribs? Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
Okay, this is not what I meant whenever I said you do the opener. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Witcher woman.
Yeah. 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 We're either going to piss you off this month or we're going to have a good time. Because.
Isn't that every month?
Every month. That's true. Yeah. We're either going to make you really mad or we're going to have just a blast. Blast. We're getting a little magical this month here on Night of the Horror File. That's right. Getting a little magical. It's like a whole witchcraft month. We're diving in to some of the witchiest movies.
Is it how does that song go? It's the season of the witch.
Oh, that Donovan song?
I don't know how it goes.
Oh, it must be the season of the witch.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That is right. It is the season of the witch here. And you know,
does that mean we're going to watch The Craft?
Okay, shh. Maybe.
I just got excited.
Maybe we will watch The Craft. I don't know. We're going to get into it. But
Okay.
But y'all, you know, okay, so we had two ways to approach this month. We could do all queer horror, right?
Right.
Or we could do a theme month with a queer horror movie mixed into the mix, you know, which I think we will get to later on.
Well, witches is kind of queer.
It is a little bit, you know,
I've never
really
met a straight queer. I mean, a straight queer. That's not what I meant.
Wow.
I meant a
You're
straight.
Right.
I meant a straight witch.
I've never met a straight queer either.
I meant a straight witch. Oh my god.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I mean, witchcraft, you know, in its essence. I mean, what is the witch mainly known for? You know, sisterhood, telling men to go fuck themselves. It's women reclaiming power, really.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's what the witch represents, especially modern day horror. You know, latter day horror. It was all about like seething at the mouth and stuff. Just fucking those horrible women. You know, but. I thought it'd be appropriate. We could do that, and we could do, like I said, maybe a witchy movie that is centered around queer horror later on. I don't know, man. I'm a little disillusioned with Pride Month.
Okay.
You know, and I say that because it seems like every corporation is like Pride this, Pride that, and then they're like, "See you later, you fucking fruit," at the end of the month. You know?
Oh
like,
yeah,
that just feels how it is. So I thought we'd take a little bit to entertain you guys. Two queer people will entertain you for Pride Month. That's what we're going to do. I think that's enough, really, you know, and maybe next year we'll do a whole month of queer horror and stuff like that. But
we'll see.
step out of the box here in Night of the Horror File.
We do what we want.
Exactly. So what did we watch this week?
The Witch.
Yes, we watched The Witch, and welcome. You know, I didn't even do the intro. I didn't even intro the show.
I don't know what to tell you.
Good morrow. How now? I welcome you to ye old Night of the Horror File.
Are we at the Renaissance Fair?
What the Ren Fair?
What is happening?
Come on ye and grab ye self a corn dog. Anyway.
They don't have corn dogs.
They don't have corn dogs at the Ren Fair?
No.
I feel like they do. You got a lot of fat
turkey
dudes there.
legs and shit.
But you got a lot of fat people there. You got to have a corn dog. I bet they call them like Corneth Doggeth or something like that. No. Anyway, I thought since today's feature has most of the dialogue from the time, you know, historically accurate dialogue, maybe we would dive into, but maybe not. That sounds annoying. I don't sound like these people. Anyway, welcome to Night of the Horror File, a horror movie and genre film podcast where I take a horror movie and genre film and have my beautiful wife, Brittany, watch it. Sometimes she enjoys these things, but sometimes she saith goeth away.
Oh, God, stop.
I got like a truckload of these. Anyway. But yes, we watched The Witch this week, and as we dive into a film I didn't like back in 2015, more on that later. That's right. Leigh cannot like a movie sometimes. Isn't that weird?
Very rarely.
Very rarely. However, as with all movies, I give them a few years, then revisit, and often find out I wasn't in the right headspace for them at the time, and now I love them. And Robert Edgers' movie is no different. Robert Edgers, being our writer and director of today's feature, he started out as a costume and set and production designer, making this his first feature film. What a way to bust out of the gate, you know.
Right.
He had done shorts before this, but he put about 5 years into researching this slice of horror from 1600s New England. That's right. We're back in time with this one. I gotta ask you, like, did you know, like, was this? Because in history class, 1600s New England and like the colonies and all that kind of stuff was a huge interest for me back in high school and stuff like that in history class. Was this ever like on your radar or something? You know, because some people have like, oh, I love Greek mythology. I loved the Rome stuff, you know, the history of Rome. I loved this, Egypt, you know. Mine was literal the colonies. I found it fascinating.
I mean, I went to the Ren Fair a couple times when I was little.
Well, that's
it's a different time.
That's a different time. This is medieval Europe.
Sure, there's my time right there. Okay?
That's your time. You like
I guess,
that?
yeah. Oh, because you know I love the gladiators and the jousters and all of that shit. Like that's the stuff I like.
Well, yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And by the way, if it sounds like we're recording outside, that is a cricket that is somehow in the studio, and you're gonna have to get over it. Yeah, I'm very angry at it. You guys can be angry at it too. Maybe he'll shut up for a minute. I don't know. It could be a witch. Could be a witch viewing our podcast, making sure we're getting this shit right. But anyway. But no, I loved 1600s New England and stuff like that, and on into like the Crucible times, like the Salem witch trials and stuff like that. I just find that bit of history and the civilization back then like super interesting and very much relatable to today, which is horrifying if you think about it. Yes. But anyway, yeah, he researched this thing for 5 years, and in his words, this whole movie is authenticity for authenticity's sake. Like he said, it does not matter that this movie had to be like historically accurate for him, but it's just there. And he said like setting such a high standard for the cast and crew to meet was exciting for everyone. Everyone was pumped to make sure they got this exactly as it would have been back then. You know, down to the clothes. Like you look at the stuff that they wear in this movie, and the reason why that stuff looks like no other movie set at this time is because of how historically accurate they got that stuff. Right. It's as close to the real thing as you can possibly be. I mean, obviously there's a lot to that culture and stuff that we probably will never know just because that's how it works. You know? Oh, yeah. Things like that are lost over time and stuff. But the biggest reason for all this was also to reset the idea of a witch. Now, witches in horror specifically, you know, in horror movies and stuff like that, that's kind of a horror element that's been driven into the ground. Oh, yeah. I mean, we have seen witches forever. It's a common thing. You have an evil woman. Let's just make her a witch. You know? Let's do that. She's a witch, you know. It's just easy. You know, it's an easy go-to. In my own movie, I did it as a go-to. You know? It's an easy little thing. But also with that overabundance of witchcraft and witchery and stuff that we have in our horror movies, we also have a problem with it's not as scary. You know, right. You've taken these things and made them not as scary. You mentioned The Craft earlier. The idea of a witch isn't the scary part of that movie, you know? That's the part that's the least scary, that witches exist but you take it back to this time and take it back to its roots and you strip away that silly Halloween decor image we know of. Right. The idea of a witch was so terrifying to these people during this time that there was a grand scale accusation of the Salem witch trials.
Right.
We now know that these were a result of religious persecutions and myths and made up stuff, mostly to just persecute women. But
sounds about right.
Not just women, though. Men were also persecuted during those times. I should say that. But, what if they weren't? Right. Is kind of what this movie kind of asks, which is the terrifying part. What if the witches really did exist? This is what these people were so fucking scared of. Let's show that,
Yeah.
Which you don't get that in a lot of movies. Now Eggers came up with the idea also for a witch movie from his childhood dreams. He had said that like throughout his childhood, he would have reoccurring dreams of witches. It was scary to him. Like, so this thing is definitely kind of personal, which I think also makes this movie good. But I think he said after he had made this movie, he hasn't had a witch dream since.
Wow.
After he did. So it's kind of like a purging of that kind of fear for him.
That's cool.
Which I don't know. The witch is the one thing on this show we really haven't discussed, which I think is going to make this month really, really interesting. Because we talked about werewolves, we talked about vampires, masked killers galore on the show, but never quite really dived into witchcraft or witchery. Do you find any of this kind of stuff scary? Like to you as a woman? I think we hear enough from people like me, guys talking about witches being scary and stuff like that. But as a woman, what is your thoughts on like witchcraft?
Well, this is spooky to me. Like, I feel like this could be a thing. Now, we know that the Salem witch trials and stuff beyond that, a lot of people were falsely accused of being witches.
Probably everyone.
Because
I can safely say 100% of witch accusals back then are probably false.
Right. Because most of it nowadays we understand that was mental illness, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and things like that. But they just didn't know about those things back then. But do I think it's beyond the realm of possibility that there is actually witchcraft? No.
Wow, that's interesting. Because like I said, we've never discussed witchcraft on the show. Not that I know of, besides the random jokes here and there.
Right. But I don't think we've actually personally talked about witchcraft.
We haven't
either.
That was another reason why this month it's going to be very interesting, because it's going to be our first actual conversations into this. Like,
right.
The modern witch, isn't necessarily a negative connotation anymore. I mean, most of these, mostly women predominantly, they just commune with nature more. What have I called it in the past? And I don't mean this as an insult to anybody out there who actually actively practices witchcraft, but I've called them goth hippies before and stuff like that, just as a feeling, because really, like I said, it's not a negative connotation when someone calls themselves a witch nowadays.
Right. I would really love, and if I had the time and the dedication to do it, I just don't have time for anything. I feel like it's a mother thing. Anyway, to sit down and really learn about old witchery, not new modern day stuff.
You run the risk with the new modern day stuff. And again, no offense to anybody, but you do run the risk of it being kind of polluted. With a lot of things. A lot of people bring stuff to it. But then you talk about these people who practice like old school paganism and witchery of that and the community. Like I said, we're going to get a lot of stuff wrong on here. So if you guys are pagan or do practice witchcraft, let us know, send us letters or write us on Twitter, add us, whatever you want to do. Correct us if you need be.
Oh yeah.
Because this is a subject I'm not entirely familiar with, I will say.
Well, neither am I, but I would love to sit down and learn those things and learn the history of it and why they did what they did, like in the history part of it.
Well, I know even growing up, witches were very negative. We caught the tail end. You weren't exposed to most of this.
No.
But like I caught the tail end of the Satanic Panic era,
Right.
back in the 90s. And so like when you're I noticed that the people that were still called witches, even of that time period, the 90s and stuff, modern times, are the ones that are more self-sustainable women living alone, women who are spinsters or cat ladies, like that,
Right.
women who are self-sustainable. And it seems like a witch really is attractive to women. Again, I'm speaking as a guy,
Right.
because it does represent a woman reclaiming power,
Right.
a powerful woman. It's something that we don't, it's not portrayed often. And usually when it was portrayed, it was negative,
Right.
which I think that's why this is kind of fascinating.
Because people don't like it when women are in power or strong-willed or
No, definitely not. Well,
how dare they speak.
right. So this month is going to be super fun, I think. There was some issue with shooting his movie because his original idea of where to shoot this was New England. He wanted to go to the original land that this was shot, get the original forests and stuff, which if you look at New England's forestry, it is a very specific type. It is very specific looking. But because of the lack of tax incentives and how expensive it would have been to film in New England, he had to settle for Canada. Now, the issue, the issue there, which, by the way, we'll get into it. This movie does look like it's in New England. I'll give it to him. He tried. The setting looks as close as humanly possible.
And however they filmed, like whatever season they filmed in, was perfect.
Well, yeah, because, like I said, the issue was getting the forestry the way they wanted.
Right.
So they had to go way off the map. Secluded areas and stuff. Finding a location in Kiosk, Ontario, which is insanely remote. And they shot this. The reason why it looks the way it does, they shot this with all natural lighting. There was no lighting rigs or anything. They used what was available. So it does give it this really ominous kind of presence to it.
Right. It looked real.
It does. Like I said, the historical accuracy of this thing is as close as you could possibly get.
Right.
And the cast, the crew, Eggers himself, they all worked with museums and stuff that would teach this kind of thing. So they worked with museum experts to get this thing down.
Wow.
And they shot it, which is the amazing part. They shot this in 25 days. It's a gorgeous fucking movie. And even if you don't get scared by this or even fucking enjoy the movie, it's the most gorgeous horror movie I've seen in years.
Oh, yeah.
And even since then, I haven't seen anything that's shot quite like this. Besides maybe Hellbender, which may or may not be getting to intent. But anyway, like I said, with all that in mind, though, with all this, it's a thick movie. With all that in mind, let's dive into 2015's The Witch.
The Witch.
Which, by the way, if you notice, like the spelling of this on posters and some promotional material, it's 2 V's instead of a W.
Yeah.
That's because in written material, and especially something Eggers had come across, written material, they used 2 V's instead of a W.
So a man named William is meeting in front of the church elders. Where they're stacking bricks on top of Lee because he was practicing witchcraft in the town. And so they were like, fuck you, you're going to die. And
Man,
that's how they did it.
That's funny you fucking say that because that literally happened to a man back in those days in the
I'm
Salem
sure it
witch
happened
trials.
to lots of people.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the things that you would do to find out if somebody was a witch, which I find those finding out if someone was a witch to be the most craziest thing you've ever heard of. Because it was like, well, we'll toss her into a fucking ravine. If she drowns, then she's going to heaven. She wasn't a witch. But if she floats and survives, she's a witch and she'll be burned.
And all of them just were not witches.
No, they all just fucking
dead.
drowned. But they were accepted to heaven in God's good graces. So we should rejoice. But they really did stack like slabs of brick onto a man one time. And it was said because they were doing it to torture a repentant out of it. you repent to Jesus and we'll stop the torture and you'll just be burnt at the stake. So
it's crazy.
So they I can't remember exactly the man's name, but it was during the Salem witch trials and they were stacking these things on him and they're like, repent. And he's like, no. And so they asked him one more time and he was like, more weight, please.
Oh my God.
I was like, damn, that guy had balls.
He was going to die anyway.
Yeah, I'd be
like, you're already halfway there.
I'd be fucking dick. It's not heavy enough. Keep going.
I'm still breathing.
But anyway, a lot of people consider this movie, and they wrongly label it as elevated horror. Now, have you heard that term?
Mm-hmm.
It's thrown around a lot in the horror community, mostly applied to movies like this. And
Are they saying like smart horror? Is that what they mean by elevated?
Pretty much, yeah. Elevated horror. Like saying a horror, basically, it's kind of a fucked up term because you're saying that a horror movie can't be a good film.
Right.
Like, because we talked about this before. The horror genre is a gutter genre to everyone in Hollywood and stuff like that. It's mostly relegated to what you do to start your film career. Make a shitty movie, like make a horror movie because it sells and stuff like that. Where actually horror movies can be these amazing films that nobody gives them credit for. And it seemed like elevated horror was the term to take that away from movies like The Witch. Because really, this and other films people slap that label on are just part of the subgenre called folk horror.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Even films like Get Out, Hereditary, It Follows, those are folk horror. Folk horror is a narrative that is predicated on the clash of cultures. Cultures blending together and other social kind of events. Like say the late 60s and early 70s, films like Blood on Satan's Claw, The Wicker Man. Yeah, those were all folk horror movies. These movies usually have elements of, folklore, like witches or other things to invoke fear into the audience. Typically, your folk horror movie is set in a rural place, which helps with the theme of isolation that these movies use to scare you. And while not always dealing with like supernatural elements, it does deal with the darkness of the landscape, be it supernatural or human, as is the case with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, shit.
Which I do. I include that in folk horror. I think that's what that movie is.
Because they're isolated.
Yeah. It deals with the time period, deals with social problems. It is a folk horror movie, whether you like it or not. I mean, you call it slasher too. That's fine. But it's still.
It's a folk slasher.
Yeah, even a slasher movie can be folk horror. So the term elevated horror is probably the stupidest thing you could label anything with. It's the dumbest fucking thing. It's like
it's putting down all other.
It is, because a movie like Get Out comes out, and we can't call it horror. They called it a comedy to get it nominated for an Oscar. Mm-hmm. But that movie in itself is a folk horror movie. Like, it definitely fits within the subgenre. It's just the thing is, these newer folk horror movies coming out, they're building upon the subgenre and making it better. These newer ones are making it even better. You look at Hereditary. Ari Aster has done so much for the folk horror genre that he doesn't get enough credit for that. Like Hereditary, Midsommar, all those movies. Like folk horror movies that are done so fucking well that they're amazing films, not just a horror movie.
Right. Why? Why people so mean?
I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't just with the term elevated horror. It wasn't just people who were putting down horror movies. It was like horror fans, because they would go about it by saying, I don't like elevated horror. I don't like it.
Because you're dumb. Because they're dumb?
Yeah, it's
I'm
like
asking, sorry.
Well,
not saying that they are dumb.
Well, kinda. I mean, you can love horror movies and not like a certain genre.
Right.
A lot of people love horror movies, but they might not like slashers. Slashers aren't their cup of tea. Or
right.
Whatever.
Like sci-fi is not mine.
Yeah, you don't like sci-fi horror. It's fine. You're not calling sci-fi horror elevated horror to make it sound stupid.
Right.
So, never use the term elevated horror.
Oh, that's what I'm calling every movie.
Yeah, and plus a lot of people used it also to sound smart. you know?
Right.
Like, oh, I got this movie. It vibed with me. So this movie is elevated horror. You just wouldn't understand.
This is like artisanal, isn't
Yes,
it?
it's like calling something artisanal bread when it's just like, oh, it's just kind of good bread. Artisanal means good.
Oh my god.
So calling something elevated horror just means it's a good horror movie. Like it's stupid. It's the stupidest thing ever.
Okay, well, we know how Leigh feels about that.
You know how I feel about it. So shut up. You guys who are calling, not you specifically.
I was like,
I got glared at. I'm scared
no,
now.
I was just confused.
Brittany might be a witch. I might get turned into a newt.
Hey, just way the cookie crumbles. I don't know what I was trying to say.
Well, we'll talk about the attraction to witchcraft at the end of this fucking movie. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Okay. So a man named William is meeting in front of the church elders, I believe, because they're having a dispute over something religious. Basically, from my understanding, William is too religious for the church. And the church is like, fuck you for being so religious.
Which, imagine being so religious that's a super religious colony who would 60 years later kill a bunch of women because of witchcraft. Imagine being too religious for them. Like too much.
Yeah.
Like imagine one of those people looking at you and going, man, you need to calm it down.
Yeah.
Like, I love Jesus and Jesus is great, but holy fuck, man.
You about to say Jesus.
Holy Jesus, you're going way too above and beyond, man. We don't need this. This is too much.
You're the brown noser. You're going to heaven. It's okay.
Which is funny because we did literally move to the colonies. A lot of us moved from the colonies to get away from like the revolutions that were going on over in Europe, the sexual freedoms and all those kind of things.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. So ultimately, William and his family are banished from the plantation and they end up moving out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, which, my God. Again, just being too religious. It's amazing.
And by the way, I want to live here.
Oh, it is beautiful.
Yes.
Like I will say, like I said, this movie is like the most gorgeous horror movie I've ever seen. And like just the landscape is gorgeous.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
You have this gorgeous land, but I think that's also what lends to its kind of spookiness.
Oh, yeah.
Because you get that shot of them like praying in front of the woods, you know, the woods that will be their undoing, as we come to find out. And you get that shot. And it's just like that ominous shot. The music gets a little ominous and stuff like that. And there's nothing outright horrific you're looking at.
Right.
But you look into those woods and you just stomach drops. You know?
And a couple of times throughout the movie, they have shots of just the woods. Like kind of quick shots, but kind of long. Like if you're really like, it's like 10 seconds of just the woods and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's like he's using the land's beauty against you in this movie, which is kind of how, you know, being a stranger in another land would be like. Because even in that opening speech, he talks about being strangers in another place, you know,
right?
Because you don't know what this is and stuff like that. And I think that plays on a fear that we all kind of forget about, you know, especially in America. We're all I think we're a little like stupid about this thing. And a lot of horror movies start out like this. We're arrogant. So when we enter a new area, we just assume we got it covered and stuff. And then you're fucking eaten by a mountain lion or something like that, you know, because you're not respecting that you're in another land.
Right.
And I think that's what, I mean, honestly, that's what white people have been doing for centuries. Like, you know, like, so that's, you know, we're so arrogant to that fact.
Right.
But when he does this, where he uses that beautiful landscape against you because you don't know what the fuck is in those woods. How could you? You're new here.
Right.
That's where a lot of the horror comes from in this movie.
You're fucking with shit you shouldn't be fucking
Exactly.
with. How dare you come here?
Exactly.
This is Texas Chainsaw. Okay.
Like, see what I mean by Texas Chainsaw fits the folk horror
I get
title perfectly.
I get it.
Yeah. Now, because a lot of these folk horror movies deal with that. a stranger from another land.
Right.
You know, entering a place you do not fully comprehend and being arrogant about it, thinking you're good.
Right.
You know. Now, for the cast, Eggers got British actors to keep in line with the authentic dialogue. You know, that's what happened. People from Britain came over here. You know, that's who settled the colonies. And so that's why this dialogue just sounds spot on. You know, well, as spot on as you could. We don't have anybody who lived during that time.
Right.
So I'm sure there's a lot that's not good. Like, because I think a lot of their dialect is based off a New Hampshirean like style of speaking, which, sorry.
This is too deep.
Yeah, I'm going a little too deep. This might be boring. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of bits and pieces about this movie that are extremely boring, you guys. I'm about to get into aspect ratios later. But anyway, but this is actually the first feature for Anya Taylor-Joy, who we've talked about in Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho.
Oh,
you remember that? Yeah, she was amazing.
I have seen her before.
She's amazing in that
this. I was like, I've seen her. I know her.
Yeah, this is her first feature. And the fact that this is set 62 years before Salem, before the witch trials, it does give a whole new layer to those kind of fears and stuff. It's kind of almost like explaining how it could be led up to that.
Right.
Like explaining how that could escalate. You see the escalation of the Salem witch trials in this movie without it being set during those times.
Right.
Because you see it. They get to the land. They're fine. Everything's going okay. They're super religious. So there's the inkling, you know, and then it just goes on from there. You know, small little misunderstandings happen and shit just blows up.
Right. So while the oldest daughter, Thomason, is praying, we see the family working on the land and in the house, and the mother has a new baby. One day, Thomason is playing peekaboo with this baby. His name is Sam.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the baby is gone.
Which this part of the movie really does introduce you to the atmosphere. Because he doesn't quite show exactly like magic happening or anything like that, you know? But, and he doesn't expose you to too much of the horrors. But just that like unknown things happening and that stuff that you definitely can tell by just the baby disappearing in a split second. You're like, oh, that's how this is going to go on. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's really, really fucking with my senses and stuff like that.
Right. So she goes to look for him in the woods and she cannot find him. Then we see someone walking that does have him because you can kind of hear him. You can hear the baby or whatever.
Yeah.
Then he's on this table and he's naked and someone is hovering over him with a knife.
And, you know, even when I wasn't liking this when I was seeing it in the theater, I'm sure people are like, what, did you not like the baby? No, this movie got a whole new star for me for killing a baby. They don't kill it on screen.
Right.
But we get a baby death right off the fucking bat.
Yeah. And I want to know where this baby is. Did you put any history of this baby? I want to know.
History of the baby.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I don't know. Yeah, because
whose baby was this?
We talk. I don't know. I don't know quite. You know, but this is some good baby acting. Like,
all he did was lay there. I'm sure someone was just talking to him.
Probably.
And then he was interested. Like, I bet mom was right there the whole time.
True. Yeah, because he's looking off screen before he's about to get cut up. You know?
Yeah, he doesn't see that knife.
No.
Anyway, so then we see this person is naked and grinding something up, and like a mortar and pestle style, but like a big stick, grinding up something.
And like I said, kudos to them, because I don't know, you know, it seems like you'd have to put a lot of power into this grinding to grind up a baby. I feel like grinding up a baby would take a lot of strength, you know? I mean, nowadays, I mean, back then, that's what I mean. This is very commendable, because nowadays we have machines that could grind up our babies, you know? I'm atheist, so I know all about baby eating. But we have machines, you know, you could pop that baby in like a little like food processor, like a Ron Popeil food processor, set it, forget it. And your baby's sausage.
So do you put it through a tenderizer before you put it through the food processor?
I don't know, because I think as we're seeing, even though we're assuming that this witch probably eats babies, we're assuming this
I don't
baby.
think she ate this.
Well,
baby.
I don't think this is one for the eating. I think this is for flying, as I'll come to talk about.
No, I'll tell you what I think this baby is for.
Okay.
Because she grinds up this baby and then rubs it all over her body, like she's rubbing some bloody something all over her body.
Okay.
I think it's for youth.
Well, that is a theory. That's a good theory. But we do see this witch later on during the witch circle, as we'll get to.
Okay. But she hasn't had a baby in a while. We also see her.
She hasn't had her baby in a while.
But we also see her when she's with
Oh yeah, with the goat.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay.
No, not the goat.
Oh no. Is she not the one with
the other kid?
Oh, true. Yeah.
With Caleb. I think she has slathered this baby all over her.
Okay.
And then she becomes youthful.
It's a good point.
And she's got to do this every once in a while. Who knows the time frame? There's
Definitely
no
up
time
for interpretation.
Here.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then who's to say?
I don't know.
Who's to say this is the same witch that we saw before? What? It's a different
Well,
witch.
yeah, there are a bunch of witches, as we come to find out later.
Anyway, so then after she rubs this baby all over her, that sounds really bad.
After she rubs this baby all over.
After she gets youthful, then she looks like she's flying towards the moon on a stick. Yeah, I didn't like that part. We didn't need that. That was kind of
okay. I was kind of okay with it because of how it's shot. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, but it's a little stereotypical.
Well, because of the fears of the time were that witches were flying all over the place grabbing up babies. And the reason why I say for flying is because well, I'll talk about it in a minute. But,
okay.
So the actress who plays this witch here, named Bathsheba, the actress name, which is really funny, is actually Bathsheba Garnett. So her name's actually Bathsheba.
Oh, God.
She played the witch Bathsheba in The Conjuring a year before this as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so if she looks familiar, that's why.
They're like, we need her.
We need
her
this
name
witch expert.
Is Bathsheba. She's our person.
Which is it's really funny because she had a hard time preparing for this scene and specifically.
I mean.
Well, her technique as an actor is usually finding a redeemable quality in her characters so she can relate to them a little bit and get into their skin. But
she's getting into this baby skin.
Yeah,
baby
playing
skin
an inhumane monster who eats babies or rubs babies on her. She was kind of like lost at first, but she approached this kind of the way PETA thinks about us, meat eaters and stuff that. Because the way they view us is we're kind of monsters who view like animals not as life, but as objects to just further
nourish us.
Yeah, to nourish us. And so that's how she had to approach this. But yeah, to play the wicked witch here, they had to get the best witch actress, and I gotta say she's pretty good.
Are we watching The Wizard of Oz?
The Conjuring? And no, I can't.
Okay, good.
I can't. There's no point of dissecting The Wizard of Oz.
We synced it.
Yeah, everyone's seen it.
Things.
Everybody knows it. We're all good.
Anyway, sorry.
But back on that scene of her flying and stuff like that, which. To do this, you did have to go back to the roots of what people thought witches actually did. Right. And this was there really was a thing where witches were flying. But I like the way it's shot because instead of just having her go by the moon and cackle or some bullshit.
Right.
We do have this like really weird shot of her that's really static almost.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's kind of slowed down and stuff like that, which I'll talk about why that looks that way later on. But it's real spooky, you know? And so what rubbed you wrong about this?
It just felt commercialized.
Right. I understand.
Like this was the only thing in the movie that I felt was commercialized was the witch on a broomstick thing.
I get you. Yeah. I mean, luckily we didn't see like I said, it's blurred out a little bit and stuff like that. So you don't necessarily see the whole broomstick or anything like that.
Right.
Because I get what you mean. But again, there is a reason why that's.
I see what you mean. I get it.
Why that's so linked with witches because the original fears and stuff. But anyway, I think all this is delivered in a sophisticated kind of way. And I mean, like I said, we've seen witches in movies. We've seen The Wizard of Oz. We've seen all this shit. We've even seen all this terrible stuff before, baby eating and whatnot. You know, in fact, the thing is, this is an actual thing people believed with the whole baby. Getting back on that is in that the witch, in order to fly, would rub herself and her broom with the unrendered fat of an unbaptized baby. Flying ointment is basically what this is.
Oh, so it was not for you.
Yeah, maybe not, but maybe not. You know, but maybe so. You know?
Who knows?
Yeah. The thing about this movie is it's not dead out explaining a witch
right.
to you.
And I'm glad. I'm happy for that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because we don't need it.
No.
We know a lot of the lore about witches, you know, but his goal was to make it scary again.
Right.
Which stopping the movie dead and explaining a witch and explaining the things wouldn't really make it as scary.
No.
Whereas delivering it in this way to where you already know the lore and you can pick up on it, which, I mean, I picked up on it. I know some people might not have, but like if you already know that, that's what makes it scary.
Right.
And it makes it realistic, which is kind of hard to do with magic and witchery and all that kind of stuff. Make it a realistic thing in your brain, because how else is it going to be scary?
Right.
I mean, for something you've seen over and over again.
I mean, that's pretty spooky.
Yeah. And you don't even see her kill this baby. But when you see her grinding it up in this pedestal thing afterwards, I think that's more visceral than seeing her eat it or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's more visceral to see this kind of stuff. Plus, while the witch isn't front and center the entire time, you do feel her presence, which is another way he delivers this kind of stuff. Like the inclusion of a rabbit in later shots. A lot of shots, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Inclusion of a rabbit or hare being closely associated with witches in colonial New England.
Yeah.
They thought the witch would turn into a hare to spy on people or influence them, or a milk hare, as they would call it, to go steal the milk from the unborn.
Ooh, dun, dun, dun. So Catherine, the mom, is constantly crying and praying, you know, because her baby's gone.
Yeah.
Caleb, the oldest son, goes to the woods with William in the early morning to go hunting and check their traps. Well, Caleb is asking about Sam being born a sinner and questions if he went to heaven because he was not baptized yet.
Which sucks. Because, like, that's the craziest part about when you think about the way these people thought and the way some people still think, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it later on, but we are not that far removed from this as much as we wish we were.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the fact that, like, because this baby was unbaptized, now he's burning in fucking hell for all eternity. That's the fucking craziest fucking thing I've ever heard. And the fact that he has to tell his kid this.
Well, and that the kid is so scared about it.
Yeah.
Because come to find out, Caleb was also not baptized for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't know. But does that mean the two younger ones were not baptized? Like Thomason is the only one that's not baptized? I don't know.
And you think, and you go to think about this, and you think about the trauma these little kids are fucking suffering, and Thomason herself suffering all this fucking trauma of, like, I'm going to hell at any minute.
Right.
Combine that with the short life expectancy back then. Holy fuck.
Yeah. And William tells him that they're not going to speak of Sam any longer. And Caleb is scared that he's going to go to hell if he died today because his sins have not yet been forgiven because he's young and he hasn't been baptized yet. And Caleb then asks where William got the hunting stuff. And he says that he traded Catherine's silver cup for it, but not to tell her. He's like, I'll tell her in my own time. So then they see a rabbit and William's going to shoot it, but it ends up these old guns, you had to like light this fuse or whatever.
Yeah.
And it got lit wrong or whatever. And it pops in his eyes.
Which you are kind of suspecting that the witch made it do this. 'Cause this
Right.
rabbit's staring right at it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen a rabbit look scary before, but this movie gets it.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Edgar said for Harvey Scrimshaw, who plays Caleb here, which Harvey Scrimshaw, that is the coolest fucking name.
By the way, this actor looks like if Carl from Shameless and the kid from the Game of Thrones had a baby.
He does kind of look like
This
that.
is him.
I thought he kind of looked like what's his name who plays young Darth Vader and like yeah, I don't know.
Guess.
I don't know. Good kid acting though. I will give you. I mean, yeah, like this kid is delivering a performance. And Eggers said for him to get that, he didn't direct him. Robert Eggers did not direct this guy, this little kid. That was Ralph Ineson, who plays the father here, William. Which Ralph Ineson, again, like every performance in this movie is extremely well done.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Ineson. He brings like this certain kind of menace that this father needs, you know, because that's ultimately the father's religion, I feel like plays a big part in being like the antagonist of this.
Oh, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. It plays a big part into this story. So anyway, apparently Eggers didn't have kids at the time. And Ineson, who is a father of two and frequently works as an acting teacher to children, he knew how to get this performance out of him.
Nice.
Yeah, especially during these types of scenes. Apparently Scrimshaw had a huge passion for soccer. So Ineson just like... he prepared him by coaching him like he was about to enter the big game or something like that, you know?
That's awesome.
But yeah, just this scene here between father and son, it tells you everything you need to know about this family and how it's upbringing and stuff. Like when they're entering the woods, he's sitting there asking him, basically telling him about original sin. The kid just telling him, you know, how he's conceived in sin and stuff like that.
Right.
To the point where you're like, man, is any bit of this life enjoyable?
Right.
Like, is any, because they're basically explaining how, like, man, you came to this earth by fucking, and fucking is sinful. We do not enjoy the fucking, but that is how you were able to come here.
And you should be grateful.
Yeah, you should be grateful because we probably repented for weeks after the fucking. I did not enjoy that fucking looking at your mother's eyes as she laid there motionless.
Oh my God.
Accepting me into her musty hole.
Oh God, you didn't have to say that.
And you're just like, Jesus Christ, there's got to be some kind of pleasure here. Like, there's got to be something, right? Like, is it fun to get the food at the end of the day? No, because we see the dinner scenes in this fucking movie. They're horrific.
Oh my God, you are too much. Anyway, when William and Caleb get back, the two younger kids, they're twins, Mercy and Jonas, are fucking around and about to get rammed by a goat named Black Phillip. And they sing this song about Black Phillip the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, William stops this and ends up falling in the mud. And Catherine is pissed because everyone is just fucking around and she just does not have time for this. She is still grieving the loss of her child. And she's like, fuck all of you. And she tells Thomason to take William's clothes and wash them in the brook.
Yeah. And of course, Black Phillip, played by a 210-pound billy goat.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were trying to play this goat down, you know, because there was a few scenes scheduled for it, but they kind of X'd that out, and I'll explain why later, really. Or I'll explain here in a minute why they scrapped those scenes.
What?
But yeah, they were trying to play this down because of the importance it does play later on, you know, to make that more of a twist. But I think it still works out.
Oh, yeah.
You know. But anyway, yeah, this thing's actual name was Black Phillip.
Nice.
Now, like I said, a lot of scenes were scrapped because this goat was just not well behaved. Like they had a trainer and everything, but there's one part where it lunges at Ralph Ineson that was not planned, where he has to grab it and stuff. That was it. Just did it. Like,
I mean, are there any goats that are well behaved?
I suppose not. I kind of want a goat after this. Like,
that's a big fucking goat. We're not getting a big
you
Black
don't want a
Phillip,
210
okay?
Black Phillip to terrorize the neighbors. I want to walk this in a robe. Like I want to walk a big black goat down the street in a fucking robe.
Is the goat wearing the
neighbor.
robe or are you wearing the robe?
Oh, can we get the goat a little robe too?
Oh my God.
It would be adorable. Imagine our satanic meetings with this little robed goat. It would go over so well.
Don't they sacrifice goats? in meetings like that?
We're not. We're not those kind of Satanists.
We're not sacrificing.
No, we
Black
don't have to
Phillip.
sacrifice. We're not saying nobody touches Black Phillip. That's what the finger foods are for. You go eat the finger foods and you come back.
Is that the baby?
Yeah, no, but we could
The finger foods
the
is the
We
baby?
could get mott sticks and shape them into babies.
Oh,
Wouldn't that be
my
great?
God.
You could eat the little baby mott stick. Oh man, our Satan meetings are gonna be awesome. And then heavy metal and fucking later.
We're
not in
not-
front of Black Phillip though.
We're
He
not
goes out in the back.
starting a cult.
Anyway, so yeah, Black Phillip was not the most well-behaved animal. In fact, according to Robert Edgars, the rabbit and the crow and the other animals were fucking great. But big old Black Phillip here really gave them hell, pun intended. And of course, we all know that goats are commonly associated with Satan, in witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Which begs the question of why you would have a goat if you were this religious and that scared of it. Like, what is that? Like, that's one thing I never understood about when you research people like this in these times. They had goats. They had to for milk and stuff.
Right. But why have a black goat? Oh, I bet they're good breeder goats.
Probably. I mean, kind of like chickens, I suppose. You have the one breeder and then all the chickens. Black Phillip getting it on. But anyway, good for him. But anyway, all this kind of lore and stuff started in the Middle Ages, actually, and followed us to America. So this stuff is like age old and stuff like that. Now, a lot of this film is supposed to be taken literal.
Okay.
There's actual witches. But if you notice, a lot of little things also depict that maybe this was all in their heads. There is a little bit of that throughout this. And to kind of throw back to what we really do know, that these people, either they were so fucking bored with life because you look at this, and like I said, there's nothing pleasurable here about this existence. And you look at this, and so it was either that, it was either jealousy, or also one of the common theories is that a lot of people were ingesting this fungus called ergot, which primarily affects rye and wheat. And so they would bake that into their breads and they would eat this. And supposedly it has the same effects that LSD did.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. So like these people were tripping balls and just seeing people perform magic and then accusing them and stuff like that. That's one of the theories. We'll never truly know, obviously. Like I said, I think a more realistic theory is probably they were just bored out of their minds and they hated one another. And they were like, wouldn't it be cool if that person was a witch and then we'd burn them? Because in the Bible, it does say, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Oh, damn.
Yep. Anyway, just saying, y'all's book is really doing some damage. But anyway, and you do see this through the movie. You see little bits of it. Like I said, you see this ramp up to where people's bad stuff is happening. Well, it can't be my fucking fault, as the dad would say. It can't be my fault for getting us banished into the wilderness and me not knowing how to fucking hunt.
Oh, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
You're getting a little ahead of yourself.
Yeah, it can't be my fault because I'm a failure. It has to be a witch.
Yes. Sounds like a man's response.
See, those American values were instilled in us
They
as
just
soon as we
run
came
deep.
over. They run deep. It's
Deep,
a
deep.
truly American thing to say it isn't my fault, it's someone else's.
So Thomason is down washing clothes in the brook, and Caleb goes to get water for Catherine. Caleb's being a little weird, looking at his sister's titties a little bit.
Which we laughed about this because I was like, you were like, is that what I think is happening? Is he like seeing his sister's cleavage and getting it?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. I was like, and you got to think, man, you're in the wilderness. There ain't nobody around. The only female present is your mother and your sister. Like, think about the fucked up confusion as a kid who's about to enter puberty. Just fucking, God, that would suck. Again, nothing's pleasurable. Even the view of a woman is not pleasurable. It's your sister, but you're popping bone. God damn. That's how incest starts.
Yes.
Because there's no one around. I might as well fuck my sister.
Oh my God.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
So they start joking and playing around, and then they hear something. Well, it ends up being Mercy. She's fucking around and she's pretending to be the witch of the woods.
I be the witch of the woods.
And she says that Thomason let the witch take Sam.
Which I'll admit, man, these little kids here, I would have drowned them in the river.
They're about 5.
They're annoying, man.
Most 5-year-olds are pretty annoying.
And again, being stuck in this existence and then having these little shits.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking, ugh.
And I see where Thomason's coming from, okay? Her mom was mad at her because she can't control the twins. And she's like, the twins don't fucking listen to me because I'm the big sister, not the mom. You're in there fucking crying.
Which also, Thomason's coming into adulthood.
Yeah.
So you know she's having her period and stuff like that. And that was seen as a fucking sin. And women were just sin. Like, women were seen as sin. You were fucking, you fucked us over in the Garden of Eden, so fuck you. So women had it fucking rough. You know, like I said, the father can go around just saying it's a fucking witch. I'm not a failure. It's a witch. But the women, they were the witches. So what do you do?
So this pisses Thomason off, and she says that she is the witch of the wood, and when she sleeps, her soul dances naked with the devil. And she says since Sam was unbaptized, that she stole him and gave him to her master, and she will do it again because she is hungry. Talking about doing this to Mercy. And Thomason like jumps on top of Mercy, and she makes her swear that she's not going to tell the parents about this. Mercy ends up just running away.
Right.
She's just doing this to scare her.
What's funny is, like, somebody brought up a theory one time that I kind of like, you know, like I said, I love people's readings of these movies because they're always different from mine.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear. And someone brought up a reading that they had. They were like, I wonder if it wasn't like the ending of this movie, if it wasn't so much as forced upon her as it was welcomed, like, a lot. Like, maybe she's courting this. You know, because they shoot this in a way where she seems super serious about what she's saying, even though she's probably just fucking with this little kid.
Right.
But, like, at the same time, you're wondering, is this something that she truly fucking wished for her entire miserable existence?
Or maybe it's something she feels like it was within her.
Right. Because you got to wonder, like a lot of girls back then and stuff like that, there had to have been a moment where someone's just like, man, I really wish I was a fucking witch. Yeah. I really fucking, all this power you guys claim I have, I wish I had that fucking much power.
Right. Oh.
Yeah, so it's a good thing to think. It's kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's not so much as she stumbled into this as we kind of get from the movie.
She manifested
kind of like that. Interesting.
So at dinner, Catherine asked Thomason about her silver cup. Thomason says that she hasn't seen it, and Catherine thinks that Thomason has taken the cup and even makes a sly comment about maybe the wolf took that too, because they assumed that a wolf came and took Sam.
Right.
They don't know about this witch thing yet or whatever.
Even your mother hates you because you, Jesus Christ, because that tells me she already resents this girl.
Yes.
Like, it's like, God damn.
But the reason she resents her is because Thomason was the one that was with Sam.
Right.
When he went missing.
Right.
I couldn't help but think that too. I mean, honestly, let's not beat around the bush. If one of my older kids was with my younger one and then my younger one went missing, I'm going to be a little weary about that.
Right.
I'm going to be questioning that, especially in my grief.
Understandable, I suppose. Yeah.
You know, I in this day and age that wouldn't happen, but I would hope it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, you're right.
But you see what I mean? Like, I could see why she would be defensive against Thomason. William comes to Thomason's defense and says tomorrow they will fast for their sins. Not that they had a fucking choice, William.
That's what I mean.
They shared a tortilla.
You got us kicked out of a good thing. In 60 years it would have sucked, but in a good thing we had going. And you were too religious.
Right. 6 of them shared a tortilla.
God. Damn.
And by the way, Mercy was eating some rice or something. Where's everybody else's rice?
I would have killed that little kid taking her rice. Again, I just, like I said, I put myself in Thomas's shoes through this movie, and I'm just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yes. So then, I don't know if they kicked her out. I didn't understand the wording on this. Oh, because the wording on this movie, very old English, whatever.
It very much is. The dialect's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, it really is. But I don't know if they kicked her to the barn or they told her to go to the barn. Anyway, she goes to the barn.
Right.
And that rabbit is there and it's just staring at her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting away from that fucking rabbit.
Because, I mean, like, what's really funny is, like, back on that theory that I think is very interesting. Like, also, you got to remember a teenage girl and stuff like that. You're going through so many changes and stuff. And, like, at the same time, you just do wish you had more power. Oh, especially in this fucking family where you are seen as just a workhorse, and no one loves anyone in this family, I feel. Right. I mean, even William, he does at the beginning, you know, throughout the movie, he does kind of defend her.
Oh, yeah.
More against the mother and stuff like that. But hey, again, you know.
They don't like her. They don't like anybody. None of them like any of them.
Yeah, so you got to imagine she's just sitting here like, I just need I need something. Like,
I need to get away from this.
Yeah. Now, you may notice the interior shots of this film have this claustrophobic feel to them.
Right.
Like, you feel it. It's thick. And even though, like, you do see the house, it's an okay size. When you're inside of it, things feel like they're closing in on you.
Yeah.
And that in contrast with the outdoor scenes, which some of them are mostly the trees looming over. You get the feel of the height of the forest, which is magnificent. And that was on cinematographer Jarin Blaschk. He shot the whole film in this 1:6:1 ratio, which is really rare for films to do these days. It's mostly relegated to movies back in our past, you know? So, and also that's what gives it this aged feel to the movie. You watch this and it does not look like anything you've seen because of that ratio aspect. Like I said, you go back to movies in the 1950s, etc., and you don't see a lot of movies that are shot on what is the standard today, the 1:8:1 ratio.
Yeah. I know. I don't remember seeing
I'm
that.
so sorry. I try not to go into these aspects, the technical aspects of these movies, because I do understand that some people get bored. You know, I totally understand, but I think this is very important.
Speaking in numbers, and I'm getting the 1:8:1 ratio. I see that thing I see those things on my camera on my phone, right? I'm like,
yeah, I'm trying to explain in layman's terms for you. I'm sure some of our film buffs that listen understand what I'm saying, but like, it's just the way it looks. I mean, that's, I get it. Is like, yeah. So you watch this movie and it gives it this aged quality without it being a gimmick, you know? Right? Because a lot of these movies might want to choose the gimmick route, shoot all in black and white, or overlay a 35 millimeter grain to it, you know? Mm-hmm. Which is fine. You know, that's fine if that's the style you're wanting to go with. But I think just little tweaks like this, taking it back to that old school ratio, little tweaks like that make it come off as a more timeless movie.
Yeah.
Like you don't. I'm so sorry. But it does. If you compare it to anything shot in 2015. Yes. You know, it looks so strikingly different and it looks so much older than what we were dealing with.
Right. Okay. I see that.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Thank God they didn't do this on fucking VHS or some shit. Can they do that? Is that what that is?
You can shoot on VHS still. It's very possible. Some people like to get the Super 8 cameras and shoot that. That's fine. Like if you shoot with the actual medium. The gimmicks that I more talk about is when they digitally add that stuff.
Right.
And a lot of people, a lot of independent filmmakers, and like I said, if that's what pleases you and you like that your movie to look like that. But for me, it's really glaringly obvious that it's a gimmick here and you just inserted that after the fact. Right. And sometimes if you a lot of people get excited that you can do that and they go overboard.
Right.
They go way overboard and your movie starts looking like, okay, this looks like a filter on Snapchat. Like, this doesn't look like you shot this in 35 millimeter.
Right.
Or Super 8 or what have you, VHS. But yeah, so, calm down. Just little tweaks can give your movie an insane feel.
Just a little touch.
Little touches, yeah.
So at bedtime, William tells Catherine that she needs to sleep because she hasn't slept at all, and that they need to turn to God and not themselves. He says that they're lucky they haven't lost a child before, and he said God has just brought them down to humble them and show them his grace. I hate that.
Oh,
bullshit.
Man. Right. It's like, no, man, this is again, it's not our failures. It's God's plan.
You know what? God sounds like a narcissist to me.
Well, you look back in a lot of these things and yeah. There's a lot of stuff where he tortures people and kills everybody's young, but you better not kill them. And it's all.
And then it's like, well, but I love you so much. And then you get the love bombing and all of this stuff.
I love you so much that I killed your child. Do you see how much I love you?
Right.
Why would I do that to anybody else but you? The most pious.
You were chosen. You're the lucky one. Anyway.
And instead of what's really funny is it's almost like he's trying to say, well, we don't need to talk about this. We need to forget about it. Move on. Fuck trauma. Don't fucking worry about that. Yeah, don't worry about that. We need to put it in God's hands.
Right. Well, Catherine says that they should have never left the plantation. And then she says that Thomason is showing signs of womanhood and it's time for her to go serve another family. Because, back in this day, they went off and served families, got married.
Yeah, got married, had children of their own, created more family. Yeah.
Right.
Again, laid down and just stared into the ceiling.
Yes.
Husband copulated with them and created the original sin again.
That's what I didn't understand about this, though, is because the actress that plays Catherine looks way too old to have this many kids. And I know that sounds weird.
Well, when you think about it, you're not supposed to be using birth control. You're not, no one's getting aborted here.
Right.
So you're supposed to follow along with what your husband's plan is.
Right.
And if he wants to have kids and sees it fit, then that's what you're going to do.
Right.
So they may be older, may be a little old to have children. And that's also another reason why he probably mentions, he's never taken a child from us yet. So.
Right. Yeah, I could see that, I guess.
Because that's the thing, man. It's crazy. Like that kind of way of thinking. You had kids. You're a breeder factory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no other. You had kids to serve God.
That's another aspect of this movie that's kind of surprising. And I don't know if Eggers really planned that, but there is a feminist aspect of this movie that bleeds through. Just the idea of how oppressed these women are.
Right. Isn't witchcraft just feminism?
Pretty much. That's what I like to equate it to because, again, it's women gaining power they don't have. Society concludes that they shouldn't have that power, so they'll kill you for it.
Right.
So it's kind of like the supernatural depiction of a woman in power.
Right.
And oftentimes, portrayed negatively, but.
Yes. So anyway, William and Catherine argue just a little bit about this, and he finally agrees that he will take Thomason to town tomorrow to find somewhere for her to go. And Catherine is also worried that they're going to starve, and he says that he will find food while he's there.
Which is fucking crazy, because he's just offhandedly, yeah, it's fine, I'll get rid of her.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
He's like, I'm not arguing with you.
We shall get rid of her. It's God's plan, though. Right. What the fuck?
Do you really think that after getting kicked off this plantation, that he can just go take his daughter? Okay, she's your problem now.
Yeah, bro, you were banished?
Right.
I feel like that's how these people would. I don't know if they'd be saying, bro, that'd be hilarious. See this guy in a pilgrim hat. No, man. No, you were banished. We banished you out of here.
And that
What the
means
fu-
your
you
family
don't
too.
You don't come here. We're having a good time.
Right.
We're having a good time. Earl's over there. He's able to play music and not be accused of witchcraft. I'm over here. I get to fuck 2 women every night, and I'm not called a hedonism. You came here with us. We agreed to have you here, and then you started accusing everybody of not following God's issues and not doing this and church every day. It was your suggestion, church every day. Some of us want to milk the goats, okay? Some of us want to build that barn. Some of us have discovered mead, and I'm really upset that you're here right now wanting some food. That does no, that is our food.
You said you wanted to find your own fucking
You said
food.
you were good. You said you were good. You sucked at hunting. You brought nothing here but just pure hell. You brought nothing to this colony. You can't hunt, can't lay traps.
Oh my God. We're going to get to that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So later, Caleb is going to the traps in the woods, and Thomason makes Caleb take her with him.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the night, by the way. Or she's going to tell the parents. She was like, I'm going, or I'm telling mom. Not a good idea, Thomason. Don't do any of this. Okay, go back to bed.
Yeah, do not be around the children alone.
Ever.
That's what you should avoid from now on. But then again, it does kind of lean into that fact. Is she just like, fuck all this? I'm going to lead this dude in the woods where the witch is going to get him.
So later in the woods, they see that damn rabbit again.
Yeah.
And this scares the horse. And Thomason gets thrown off of the horse and passes out. Then we see the parents find out that the kids are missing. So they tie up the
Yeah.
twins. You stay here.
This is the most sense these people have made.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? These are good. They're going to wander off and get eaten by a wolf. We're tying them here.
Right.
I wanted to tie them to the goat. You said no, but we'll tie them here.
And they're looking for the kids. So Caleb, he's walking through the woods alone, looking for Thomason. And then he comes across his dog that's like half eaten.
Yeah.
Ah, fuck.
Not what you want.
No. And Thomason wakes up and she goes back and she finds William. Then we see Caleb. He comes across a house in the middle of the woods, and this beautiful woman comes out of her house, kisses him, and grabs him with her witch hand.
Yeah, you see she's a gnarly old lady. I love how this is like, it makes you feel like a Stanley Kubrick shot here, like that shot of Room 27 or whatever, where you see the old lady, the old decrepit lady come out of the tub and stuff, and The Shining.
Yeah.
Like it definitely has a vibe to it about
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You know, which I love how this is shot. It's real creepy, even though this lady is like the drop dead gorgeous woman in the middle of the fucking woods.
And he's not even questioning it.
Well, because we saw him staring at his sister's tits. You get to the woods and there's some mysterious hot lady. I'm going.
That's how
all
you
I got to
die.
look at is my sister. I'm going. Certain death, I'm still going. Because you have a 50-50 chance she's just going to have sex with you. And you're going to be okay, or she's going to eat you. It's one of the two.
Worth the trot.
Yeah, I mean, this or my sister. You know.
Oh my God.
All these supernatural scenes, like I said earlier, like they do look different.
Yeah.
And that's because they're shot differently. Again, I'm going to bore you guys. But these are shot in 27 frames per second as opposed to the 24 frames per second, which is the standard to shoot a regular movie in. So you see these and they feel like not so much sped up.
I was going to say faster.
Yeah, feels a little quicker. Like, but also it just gives it this dream quality feeling to it. And this happens each time they do this, and you're seeing more of the frames per second and stuff. And so the movement is a lot smoother and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Brittany's like, you're boring me to tears.
So Thomason is back home, and Catherine is trying to figure out what's going on. William is going to leave, but he has no horse, no gun, and no dog to assist. So he's basically fucked.
You did it to yourself, man.
Yes.
You brought us out in the middle of the woods.
Yes. So William then confesses that he sold her silver cup for those traps in the woods, and that he did it for food and money from the pelts of the animals that he was hoping to catch.
Which I'm with Catherine on this because she's furious about it. Not so much for the cup, but just through the sheer fact that what you attempted to do is doing nothing. You're not trapping anything. I see no pelts. I see no pelts here.
Right.
We have no money.
So
what the fuck? Yeah.
When, in all honesty, he probably could have sold the cup for food.
But yeah, he's got to be a man and provide, I suppose, is what he's looking at it like. But again, it's like, dude, you suck.
Yeah. Yeah. So she thinks he's a liar. Well, I mean, he is. And thinks that if he goes to the woods, he will be damned for the rest of the family. Like, they will all be damned. The rest of the family will. She's basically like, fuck you. Fuck your shit. Do
Which,
something.
as much as we come to despise Catherine throughout this movie, she has a point. Like, which begs again the question of why he got kicked out of the colony. I mean, of course, he was too religious for them, but also, did he just suck at everything?
Yeah.
And he was bringing nothing positive to this colony? Because you got to remember, when you were in a colony, as crazy as they would get throughout the ages and as white as they were, you still had a responsibility. You were building something in this crazy in this land that you weren't
everybody
sure
had a
of.
job.
Yeah, everybody had a job. You had to pull your weight.
Yeah.
So if this guy's walking around just preaching nonsense while you're trying to fucking build a cabin or start a fire, and he's just yelling at you because of Satanism and witches. So Catherine totally had firm standing on her fucking bitching at this guy because Jesus, it's definitely an example of the hypocrisy of this religion and this man here, you know, be it on purpose or accident is what we're seeing here is the hypocrisy here. Because William talks like he's this higher person of God, put it all in God's plan and stuff like that. But when he goes and does something, that's wrong. In his eyes, it's fine. Right. Because he deemed it fine. Right. You know, so it's definitely the hypocrisy that kind of does do him in.
So Thomason's in the barn. I guess they banish her to the barn. Like, that's where she has to sleep when she's in trouble. I don't fucking know. And she hears something. She goes outside and it's Caleb. He's naked and passed out in the rain.
Now, a lot of this, when these people are naked, it's this tight-fitting underwear that they put on him, and they remove it in post.
So they bring him in, and he's in a coma-like state. And the next day, the twins are making fun of Thomason, saying that she is the wicked, and she put the devil in Caleb. And then, when Thomason goes to milk the goat, only blood comes out.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun. And she's not milking Big Phillip or Black Phillip.
Ew. I don't think you can milk Black Phillip. That's not the milk you want. I mean, you can. I'm sure Black Phillip would be quite appreciative, but
Ew.
I think this milk has turneth. That's from Black Phillip.
You just took it way too far.
The other goats gave out blood, and so I went to Black Phillip, and that's the milk you're drinking.
Anyway.
There's more than witchcraft about. Oh, fuck.
Anyway, so Catherine's talking to William, and she thinks this is all witchcraft. And William tells her not to think of such things, but in the morning that they're going to go to the plantation, find a home for Thomason, and find a doctor for Caleb.
Yeah, because Catherine has made the leap of logic from my husband is terrible. Because she's, I mean, you can't just accuse this man of being a piece of shit.
Yeah, you can.
You can. But, you know, you're seeing, like I said, you're seeing the progress of what happened back then. You can't accuse this man of that shit because he's your husband. So when you start accusing him, all he has to do is say you're a witch.
Right.
Like, and so you're seeing this natural leap of logic people probably did back then, where it's like, okay, well, she's a witch. I think there's witchcraft afoot. That person over there, like, that's a witch.
she starts to argue with him and says that she wishes they were back home in England, because obviously this plantation was not their first home. They went to the plantation. This is probably his fucking fucked up shits too.
Again, just how religious he is. It's also a danger of that kind of thought. You know, like the leap of logic here is it doesn't make sense to us. But to people back then and people today who were still very religious, who still live their life by the book, by what God has planned for them, that leap of logic is not that weird to them.
Right.
Like the fact that witchcraft is about, because it's crazy to think, but there are still people today who are very, very convinced that the witches are real, witchcraft is real, Satan's real, and he's out to harm you.
Right. And she says that since Sam went missing, that she feels far away from God and that she keeps praying, but she can't seem to get closer to him.
Yeah, because obviously she's questioning her faith with that, which is,
not okay.
So you would blame that on a witch too. Why am I questioning my God? That's not okay.
Right.
I've never questioned God before. It can't be the trauma I'm facing.
Right.
It can't be the fact that I'm like, why would God allow this to happen?
Right.
It can't be any of that. So it must be a witch.
Right.
It's Satan getting his claws into me.
Oh my gosh. So Mercy's outside singing about Black Phillip, and they can hear Caleb scream. So he's chanting, "Get the narrow axe, he'll cut off her head." Then he's screaming because of his bowels hurting, and he's screaming, "Sin, sin." Then he throws up a whole apple with a rotten bite taken out of it. Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
This shit is pretty fucking crazy. Like, you don't, like, the horrors in this movie aren't outright. Like, you're not seeing, like, yes, there are scary images and stuff like that. That's throughout. But what I do applaud of this movie, there's not a lot of jump scares.
Right.
There's barely any jump scares.
Are there any jump scares?
No, but the religious aspect is what gets under your skin and starts really creeping you out. You start getting creeped out not only by the fact that there's a witch involving herself in this family who's fucking doomed from the very start. Not only is that really getting under your skin, but also it's just the weird religious imagery.
Oh, yeah.
The apple, the Eve's apple, you know?
Right.
Yeah, the bite taken out of the apple, the original sin, which plays off of that whole speech he was given to his father about original sin. But it's just that kind of stuff. And like I said, I wasn't in the headspace when we first saw this, so I didn't really pick up on that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But when I watched it this second time around, like that stuff was really getting under my skin and really creeping me the fuck out.
Oh, yeah.
That like this witch is using their own fucking religion against them. Like, that's what's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Definitely using it against them. So the twins say that Thomason is a witch and that she did this. And William basically says, "I didn't really know a witch, and she needs to prove that she is not." So they all start to pray, and the twins start acting really weird and laying down, like, freaking out or whatever. Yeah,
they start shaking and shit and saying she's doing stuff to him, which is like, I keep saying which. It's a real thing that would happen during those like trials and persecutions and stuff, where people would start acting like that. And so, that was just allowed in a court of law. Right. Like, imagine these days, which we are real close to that happening. But imagine these days if it was just like a fucking traffic incident where you hit a fucking car or something. Imagine if they just allowed the notion of Bigfoot in. Like, somebody hit your car and somebody was like, "Well, I was looking at Bigfoot." And they were like, "What? Makes sense. Makes sense. It was a straight up accident." Imagine if they let that shit in, but they did back then.
Yes. Caleb then wakes up and he starts to pray, and he's excited, almost like God is right in front of him. He's like, "Yes, take me with you. Let me sit on your lap." Blah blah blah, and then he dies.
So that's another thing that kind of freaks you out, because if the witches are real in this movie, if that thing, then it stands to reason that their religion is real.
Right.
You know, it's the old adage, if evil is real, then, there must be a god.
Right.
You know, it's that kind of thing. Yeah. And so like, which is a whole thing in itself that I could get into. The problem of evil is the thing, you know, but it stands to reason that that's going on. So the fact that these witches are able to do this, it gives like a pit in your stomach to where you know that there's no fighting these things.
Right.
If these people are so religious and if they're so pious and stuff, if they're the number one religious people, like they're the top of the chain. If this is happening to them, then you know,
then we're all fucked.
Then you're all fucked.
Right.
There's no fighting this.
And by the way, the acting from Caleb here is phenomenal.
Spot fucking on. Again, just to get this kind of a performance out of a child.
Right.
Like that's hard to do. We talk about horror movies with their endless supply of annoying little kids. You know? Again, House by the Cemetery. Bob. But yeah, you have this long supply of annoying little children. So when it comes to a movie like this where you're getting these A-list performances, like Scrimshaw deserves a lot of attention for this fucking role.
Oh yeah.
He performs his ass off, even if he's being coached during, you know, which kudos to Ralph Ineson.
He's like 12.
Again, it's but you see what I mean, and it's no wonder why Anya Taylor-Joy is going on to do bigger and better things because she gives some of the best performances I had seen during 2015.
Oh yeah,
because like I said, even though I didn't enjoy the movie itself at the time, I did enjoy the performances.
Right. You said from day one you loved the dialogue, you loved the acting.
I fell in love with the dialogue because the dialogue is more of that kind of crucible talk, I always call it. You know, you get that kind of old English kind of dialect and stuff, and they do that in the Crucible, and I love the Crucible. Even though I remember being in school and people were bored to tears with the Crucible, I fucking loved it. Because I just find it fascinating, and the way they talk and the way they handled themselves, and just the idea of a society purely motivated by religion.
Scary.
It's horrifying, but at the same time fascinating that they could all be like that.
Right.
You know, it's the same way some people would look at the ancient Egyptians and are fascinated by that culture. You know, the fact that like, oh, the sun god and this god and stuff. People are fascinated by that. I was fascinated by this, you know. And the scary part is we're not that far off removed. But a lot of this movie's dialogue, specifically this scene of Caleb's death, was taken directly from trial records from the Salem witch trials, journal entries. Robert Edgers went through everything like that. Again, this took 5 years to research. They would hold trials of the accused back then. And again, like I mentioned earlier, they would allow something called spectral evidence. Basically, there's a newt. That's evidence that she's a witch. She turned that man into a newt. Remember that guy that went missing? No, he wasn't eaten by a bear out in the woods. No, he got turned into a newt, and there he is right there. See him? And they would allow that shit and believe it.
That's crazy.
Because why would you lie about this?
Right.
That was the thing. And another thing was children. You know, they would look at the children. Oh, is she controlling you? I see her spirit right now. She's pinching me. Oh, Lord. Because why would a child lie? You know?
Right.
That's the way they looked at this shit. So imagine that. It's real close to what we're about to get to in this day and age, which is really scary. It's almost like society has circled back around, which is a horrifying aspect.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
But yeah, they would allow this kind of shit. And so that's why, even though, you know, you might be watching this and be like, why would they leap to this? Besides religion, why would William be won over by this? Because you see that here in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he be won over by this? Well, because why would the children lie?
Right.
You know, why would they lie? You know, she is obviously entering womanhood, and it's very sinful what she's going through. So she would lie.
Right.
But why would the children, you know?
Right. So Catherine kicks Thomason out of the room and William follows her. He says that tomorrow when they go to town, the council will be called and he alludes that she will be killed. It's
a scary fucking scene.
Yeah.
Because he basically says they're going to kill you nicely, like a father would deliver to you. That's what the scariest fucking part about this is.
It's like, I hate to tell you this, but if you don't confess, then we're going to have to take you to town and they're just going to have to off you. Sorry.
Yeah, my bad. You know, that's
Yeah.
dims the rules.
I kind of did this to you, but
Dims the rules. Hey, tough break, kid.
right. And then he basically says that it's too much of a coincidence that Caleb and Sam were with only her when they went missing. And then she was the one to find Caleb. And he tells her that if she just confesses her sin, that they can unwitch her.
Yeah. And we know that unwitching kind of probably involves death still.
Oh, yeah.
That's the fucked up part.
Yeah.
Because you're a teen, you're her right now, and you're facing this. Like, what the fuck? On top of this miserable existence, now you're telling me I'm a witch and I'm going to die.
Right.
I do think, you know, like I said, I do like that theory of the idea that this entire movie, she's been courting this idea.
Right.
That I'm going to become a witch. You know, fuck this. I'm becoming a witch. She courts this. That's a cool theory, but I like to think that like right here is when it happens.
She's like, fuck it. I'm being accused of it. I might as well do it.
Yeah, it's the last fucking straw. It is. And we've all kind of faced a similar circumstance like this.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's you're being accused so fucking much that it's just like, you know what? Fine, I might as fucking well be. Because now you're telling me I'm going to die. And I know I'm going to die for something that isn't real, that I'm not doing.
Right.
But you're going to do it anyway. So why am I not just that?
Why am I not just doing it? I mean, I did that with my ex a lot. Like, always accused of cheating. So why don't I just fucking do it?
It's fucking true. Like, if I nonstop accuse you of cheating, the urge to just fucking do it is there because we're human. You know? Well, the urge to just fit the narrative that you've created for me, I might as well be doing it because then it would make sense in my brain.
Like I'm getting yelled at for it, so I might as well fucking do it because obviously you're not going to leave.
Yeah, which it does make the ending of this movie something that you're not expecting because we've seen these witches eat babies. We're seeing them probably have control over this family. Maybe, you know, you don't really see it outwardly, but it does look like they're really interfering with the shit. Because so the ending, the feeling you get at the end is not what you're expecting.
Right.
And maybe other people had different feelings at the end of this movie, I'm sure.
But whatever.
Yeah.
So then she starts speaking of William's sins, calling him a hypocrite, and basically says that he sucks ass and that all of this is his fault. She says that he can't hunt.
Yeah.
He can't provide money. All he's good at is chopping wood.
And that's what really turns him because she insults his pride.
Right.
You know, you don't do that. You don't insult a man's pride.
And then she blames Black Phillip for being Lucifer and says that the twins have been the ones talking about the witch of the woods and whispering to Black Phillip. And they say they talk to him and he's the one talking to them. And so she's like, that actually makes more sense. They're the ones that are witches and Black Phillip's controlling them and fuck you, you suck.
Which is crazy because that's the leap of logic he makes.
Right.
You know, you're seeing this get progressively worse and worse.
Yes. So William takes her into the house and he starts yelling at the twins to speak and they won't until he threatens to bash their skulls. This was pretty hilarious.
It kind of was. Seeing this adult man hold a child up and yelling at him is pretty good.
Yes. He then ends up locking the twins, Thomason and Black Phillip, in a shed, like the barn or whatever. And he says that he'll be back at dawn.
Yeah, because what's funny is, like, again, we're kind of giggling about this because of this leap of logic he's making and stuff. But then when you look back, it really was like this. Like, this is the way these people, like, they would have them recite the Lord's Prayer. And if you couldn't, because who could fucking remember? If you couldn't and you had to stop in the middle, and even if you faltered for a minute, that meant you were a witch. Mm-hmm. Because supposedly the Lord's Prayer would harm a witch. You know, so reciting the Lord's Prayer harms you if you're full of witchery.
Right.
So
you're going to burst in flames or something. Yeah,
so and that's what I mean by the horrors of this movie, to live it very realistically.
Right. And locking them up, yeah, definitely. And Thomason's like, don't lock me in here with them.
Because even though they're your children, you're like automatically they're not your children if they're witches.
Well, and we've said this before in zombie movies, when the zombies turn into children. I ask you this all the time. Would you kill the child? Would you kill one of our children if they turn into a zombie? And you're like, yeah. Because it's a fucking zombie at that point.
Yeah. So that's how these people are seeing them.
Right.
Which,
they're fucking witches. They're not my children.
which is,
anymore.
again, you look back and I've heard a lot of people say, how could they do that to their own family? It's like, well, if you're this religious and it's this instilled and that is so real to you that, the fact that that's such a sin and that's so evil, yes, you would turn to that.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely would. That's where, like, I do say I'm not 100% sold on the idea that they were all just loaded full of LSD.
Right.
I do think a lot of it had to do with their extreme religion.
Yeah. Definitely. So William's chopping wood and he has a breakdown and he says that this is all his fault because he has too much pride. Then he begs God to take him and save the children. So later that night, Catherine wakes up and she thinks that she sees Caleb holding Sam. And Caleb says he brought her a book and she says she needs to feed Sam first because he's hungry. And obviously they breastfed back then and all of that.
Yeah.
And then we see the witch lady in the barn with the kids suckling the goat, I assume, or eating the goat. I don't know. I guess eating the goat.
It's scary either way.
Yeah.
I love how, like, again, they use natural light on this. I think that's what lends to this being fucking horrific.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't, like, fully see the witch here. You get, like, a lot of it's in the shadows and stuff. But, like, because she's so pale and because the goat is white, that's what you're focused on.
Right.
And so that perspective shot that they give you here is fucking terrifying.
Yes. And then it cuts to Catherine and she's sitting in a chair holding this blanket, but her nipple is getting pecked off by a crow.
Which, okay, so this whole scene with her in the book and all that stuff is definitely it's a lot of allegory kind of things.
Yeah.
Because, like, it was believed that, like, to become a witch, you had to sign Lucifer's book and stuff like that. You had to be presented with the book to sign your name and stuff and give your soul over. And that's how you became a witch.
Right.
But the crow thing, which when we first saw this, this second time around, it was freaky.
Right.
I'll admit. But the first time we saw this in theaters, I laughed.
Yes.
The whole audience erupted in laughter.
Yes.
Because you cut from the scary scene. And now that I think back, I wonder if it was just because we were all fucking nervous.
I think so.
Because this scene builds up. We rush through it, but it builds up to this crescendo of her getting this crow ripping her nipple off. And, like, you cut from that cackling witch to just this, where she's like, I'm just getting her nipple ripped off. It's scary.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, if it was the first time we were all just nervous.
Maybe
laughing,
so.
because there was nothing funny about it this second time around.
No.
And I was like, why did I laugh? Like, that's what's funny about watching these things years later after you've seen them.
Right.
But this whole nipple crow thing, it's a reference to the witch's teat, which was the idea was, and this is another reason how they could tell if you were a witch, quotation marks, was they would look at your body, and if you had a blemish or something somewhere on your chest or something like that, or a third nipple.
It happens.
Pray to God you didn't have a third nipple back then, because that was called the witch's teat, and it was a special little area that was believed it was a way for the witch to feed blood to her familiars.
Oh.
Which a familiar as an animal.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then we had the goat earlier with the blood. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So the next day, William wakes up and he goes outside. Thomason is laying half out of the barn and the goats are dead. Not Black Phillip. And then William ends up getting rammed by Black Phillip.
Oh, man, this thing fucking spears his ass.
Oh my gosh, right in the stomach. And he grabs an axe, but then decides to just let himself get killed by Black Phillip.
I think, okay, so when you're watching this, it's like William kind of just fucking accepts it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
He's like, I'm gonna die. I'm
Yeah,
not
because
gonna.
he looks at the size as chaos be my damned or something like that.
Right.
And it's just like, I fucked it all up. Like, this is it.
Right.
Fuck it. Just take it.
Right.
Take me.
Right. So then when Thomason goes to check on him, like to assess him or whatever, Catherine comes out and she is pissed. She's like, oh my God, this is all your fucking fault. Basically. And she says that Thomason made a deal with the devil and she was a slut to her brother and to her father. That's the only excuse that she has.
Yeah. Because again, you think back and like he's been defending her for most of the movie up until that point. He's been defending her. And then you start thinking, this mom was also jealous of her.
Yes.
Which is something that probably happened back then. If you were just living out on your own in the middle of nowhere, again, brother's looking at your tits because he's got no tits to look at.
Right.
Your father's defending you probably just because you're his kid. But mom is like, no, it's another woman who's going into womanhood. So I'm competing with her now.
Right. She's younger. She's more viable.
Again, no pleasure in this existence at all.
No. So they start to fight, and Thomason ends up killing Catherine with a hand shovel. And this is to save her own life. She's not killing her just to, because Catherine's choking her, and she doesn't really have a choice. So now everybody's fucking dead. And Thomason goes inside, and she ends up just falling asleep. I'm sure this is like adrenaline, like an adrenaline crash.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I mean... Fuck.
Yes.
Fuck this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's crazy about this movie is, again, we've kind of touched on it as we've gone here, but not much has changed in society since witch hysteria.
Oh, yeah.
There might be another thing to blame. We might have put it on something else, not accusing people of being witches, but like you look at the way we treat women with abortions and stuff like that.
Right.
We might as well be calling them witches. We're talking about being able to sue them and take away their bodily autonomy. Like there are people in this world that want to take it back to this time, you guys.
Oh, yeah.
If this is how we live now, people would fucking love it. Some of these people. Which is horrifying.
Oh, yeah.
In Thomason, as we will see, has been so controlled and so beaten down by this way of life that a literal deal with Satan is a relief and welcomed.
Right.
Because this movie's ending should be horrifying.
Right.
And this is my reading, you don't feel that way. In fact, you feel relieved for her.
Right.
There is a relief.
She's released from this.
Yeah. And she's quite literally casts off her bonds of the previous society when she gets naked and escapes to the woods here in a moment. Back then, a woman being controlled or in control or outspoken or even self-sustainable, as we've seen, was marks of being a witch. A lot could get you labeled a fucking witch.
Oh, yeah.
A woman... Like there were stories about women being able to farm and being self-sustainable and they're holding their own. Fucking witch.
Right.
Like my next door neighbor is just a woman and she's able to farm. I can't grow anything. Not because I suck, but because she's a fucking witch.
Right.
And so like that kind of shit. And just being in control of your own body was seen as a sin. And like I said, most of the country we live in at the time or at this time, kind of believes this. Right. Which is scary.
It's very scary.
Because we're supposed to be above all this. We think about these times as being sophisticated. We're more sophisticated than we were back then. That's the common thing when people approach this subject. Well, yes, this is terrifying, but we've moved past that. We're a more civilized society than we were back then, you see. Yeah. No. But when you look around you, not so much.
No.
In the horror that this movie, like The Witch, brings, the folk horror specifically, it's something we all try not to do. Look back. People are afraid to look back to the point where, the critical race theory, that's a way of looking back.
Right.
No. Do not do that. Right. Don't look back. Because even though it is a very valuable asset that we do look back and we do learn from our mistakes of the society. that would admit that you were a mistake.
Right.
That would admit that that way of thinking was a mistake. And a lot of people don't want to fucking do that.
No.
So the horrors that these type of movies bring is that thing. It forces you to look back on society as it was and compare it to society now. The Witch is amazing at that.
Right.
Because it does. You look back, you get a glimpse into this life. And then you're living it today. You know, you're looking at it now compared to today, and you're like, wow, we have not.
We've not changed much.
Yeah, there's not a lot of moving forward.
No.
That's the scary. You know, that's the horror.
Oh, yeah.
That's the horror element. This country is just a few laws away from a witch hunt.
Right. So Thomason wakes up, and it's dark now. So, of course, she goes walking around outside. You know, everybody's dead. Whatever.
You fucking might as well.
So she goes to talk to Black Phillip, and she asks him to speak, and he finally does. And he wants to know what the world is like. He's like, what is it like to do this and this and this? And then we kind of see him in the behind her as a human. I love that
because you see the goat's foot step forward, but then it turns into a boot.
Right.
And then he walks behind it. And there's a part where he's asking her, what does she wish?
Right.
What does she want?
Right.
And stuff like that. And another thing that got a giggle out of the audience was he does ask her the sweet taste of butter.
Right.
Which, thinking of it now, we're like, oh, what the fuck? What the fuck does that mean? Back then, eating butter was seen as a sin.
Oh, wow.
Especially if you were poor.
Right.
You know, the taste of butter and stuff like that in England and stuff. I think Martin Luther, he preached against that. You know, he spouted against that, not eating butter, especially if you're poor. You know, the impoverished were not supposed to partake in butter. That was seen as a sin.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's why he asks her that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then he tells her to undress. And she does. And they walk through the woods, and we can hear women chanting. And then we see them around a fire. They're all naked and chanting. And they start to float in the air. And then Thomason starts to float. And then the movie is over.
And again, like, this is a relief. Like, she just maybe, because Black Phillip is a representation of Satan. And you suppose this man that walks behind her is Satan.
Right.
You know. And so, like, the fact that this life was so oppressive to her that the idea, you know, because it's something you wouldn't necessarily want to do. You wouldn't want to make a pact with Satan and go join a bunch of, like, killing, you know, evil witches. Right. That's not something you'd want to do. But the fact that, like, it was so oppressive, and we witnessed this, and we traveled this distance with her to the point where she does do this. And you see her laughing for the first time in this entire fucking movie.
Yes.
Like, when she floats up in the air, it is a goddamn relief.
It really is.
Yeah, this is a good ending.
She feels free of the
she
chaos.
has literally cast aside the societal pressures that life has given her. And she's joined the witches' coven, you know, out in the woods.
I mean, I want to, too. I want to be naked in the woods.
It makes it attractive, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Like, okay, so I just got to kill a baby here and there. All right. That's not so bad.
Yeetus the fetus. Fatality.
Yeah. You know, and this was such a that's the thing. This was such a positive view on Satanism right. That the Satanic Church or the Satanic Temple or something hosts screenings of this.
Oh, wow.
They say it gives a view as to how fucking terrible that someone who's super religious can make life.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it does give that view and stuff. And so, like, yeah, this is a positive outcome. Our main character joins a witch's coven where they're eating babies and doing all sorts of scary things. And that's a good ending. We got a good ending. It's a happy ending. And that's what I'm like, wow, that's insane that it makes you feel that way. Or it makes me feel that way. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of you might have different readings, and we'll get to your readings here in a minute.
Okay.
So The Witch had its premiere at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival, January 27th, 2015. It was said to be the scariest movie of Sundance. And now
Wow.
it also had a screening at the Toronto International Festival. A24 and DirecTV Cinema acquired distribution, and we got it February 19th, 2016. Now, I was going to tell you, like, I remember you bringing this movie to me because people were telling you it's the scariest movie of all time.
Right.
That was one of the reasons that got me to the theater.
You're like, oh, you want to see a movie with me? What?
Yeah, because I'm constantly, as a horror buff, as a big horror fan, I'm constantly tracing that dragon. You know, we all have that moment that we were scared to death when we were younger. And so when someone tells you it's scary, you want to be there.
Right.
You want to be there front and center and planting your ass in the theater seat and watching this movie, seeing if it gives you that feeling. It didn't give me that. I'll get to that in a second. Now, the movie grossed a whopping $40 million against its $4 million budget.
Wow.
Yeah, it made a lot. It received mostly positive reviews. Sure, it has its negative detractors and stuff at the time, but mostly this movie has had a positive effect on people,
Right.
including Master of Horror Stephen King, who said it terrified him to death.
Okay. That's a little dramatic.
Well, he's still alive, so he's not. But, you know, I'm paraphrasing.
Well, yeah.
When we first saw this, as I said, I didn't care for the movie. Thinking back, I don't think I was in the headspace for this type of movie.
Right.
Folk horror, I'll let you guys know, folk horror is a relatively new subgenre to me. I never really got into folk horror until, the past 4 years. You know, has really gotten me into it. And so I think it was something new.
Right.
And it was too new to me, you know.
At the time.
Yeah, because I hadn't seen The Wicker Man, for God's sakes. It was just a subgenre that I was not into.
Wow.
You know, so seeing it back then, it was way too new. It was way too much, and I just didn't understand it. I didn't see what it was
Right.
going for, and I felt it was boring. You know, but even back then, I still loved the attention to detail, first of all, and the dialogue, which is gorgeous. So I was sold on that. So I never gave it a negative statement about it.
Right.
I just said, no, it's not my movie, you know. And again, you know, I love stuff like The Crucible and other works focusing on times like those. And so I was sold on just purely that. So I just always said it was a good movie because based on that. Because I just don't have too much of a bias against movies, you know. If it didn't affect me, that's fine. I'm sure it seems to be affecting other people, so I'm going to give it a positive review.
Right.
But, you know, I'm not sure exactly what it was. Maybe it was that. That's the only thing I can think of, that I just wasn't into this type of movie. But I didn't find it scary. And like I said, I felt kind of bored. But watching it this time around, it got me. It was scary.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I find it very scary. It's horrifying at parts and stuff like that. Just in very subtle. You know, it's a very minimalist movie.
Right.
The lighting and the mood and stuff really takes you there. So, and that's why I preach revisiting movies you hated or just didn't care for in the past, because they might surprise you when you watch them again.
For sure.
So never discount a movie that you didn't like. Watch it again. At least watch it 2 times.
In a different headspace.
Yeah, exactly. That's how many of these movies get a newfound, you know, rise in fame, like Jennifer's Body. Most hated movie when it came out, but then everybody now loves it after they've revisited it and really got what it's trying to tell you. To me, now, The Witch is a thick slice of folk horror. It's disturbing on several levels. Its depiction of women and how we haven't come too far from the old times in their treatment. The realistic depiction of a witch, you know, making it to where, hey, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
For it to do that to you. And the satanic horror elements and stuff like that have, you know, you look at horror movies in general, and those elements have been driven in the ground. But the way Robert Eggers delivers it to you, it reaffirms like how terrifying this stuff really can be.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Instead, you know, and also just the depiction of the life back then. You know, in high school, when you learned about this, you're just like, look how dumb we were back then. Look how dumb that is. And you watch it today, and it, again, the way he delivers it, you're like, oh, we're not that far removed.
Right.
You know? And so it acts as a more complex look at what was a very complex situation back then. It wasn't just cut and dry. We were just dumb. You know, a lot of people like to write it off as we're just dumb. There was other factors figuring into the insanity that's spread throughout.
Right.
And it continues to happen. You know, the satanic panic is not that far removed. I mean, I would love to say we weren't killing people, but we basically were.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, yeah. So like, we're not that far removed. Society has not come that far from then, which should truly terrify us all. But some people, it invigorates them. But anyway, but enough about me. What did you think about 2015's The Witch?
Okay. Hear me out on this.
All right.
So when we watched this, when we went and saw it in the theater, I didn't like movies.
Correct.
You know, I still don't like movies. Like, I don't watch movies.
Because I think we were kind of on the same page of the boredom.
I was confused. I did not understand the dialogue. I admit, when I watched it again for this, I did have to watch it with subtitles. I got it more. I understood more.
Yeah.
To listen to my movies, I have to have subtitles.
Yeah, because I think a lot of movies don't go that far with dialogue.
Right.
Like when it's a period piece. They don't go that far as this movie does.
I didn't understand what they were saying, so it made it very hard for me to follow this because I didn't understand what was going on. And also, I didn't care about movies, so like, I was like, meh.
I'm not reading into this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense to me. So obviously I didn't like it back then. But watching it now, I liked, okay, so I remember thinking that it was boring. And that's because I didn't understand it. But now, watching it, I was not bored. I wanted to know what happened every step of the way. I was like, I want to know what was going on. Like, it really caught my interest in watching it with subtitles. I could understand what they're meaning. And
because I think I also mentioned it to you. I was like, I don't remember this moving so fast. Like when we saw this.
Yeah,
movie.
it felt really slow, really kind of blah.
It was too different.
Right.
It was definitely too different.
Yeah.
Like,
and I expected, you know, jump scares and like horrific things to be happening because everybody was like, oh, it's the scariest movie ever, blah, blah, blah. I would not go as far to say that this is the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, the scariest movie ever made is now such a fucking hype machine.
Yeah.
That like you don't ever take it seriously anymore.
Right. Was it a good movie? Yes. Did I like it this time? Yes. I liked it a lot. I like the horror aspect of the religion. It's a scary thing. Man, I can relate to Thomason. I can relate to Catherine too, even though I didn't really like her. She was going through some fucked up shit, man.
Well, it definitely, like I said, there's that feminist element to it that does bleed through a lot.
Yeah.
Like you do see the women kind of rising to the top in this movie where, like I said, Catherine, we do come to despise her for her treatment towards Thomason. But
I can understand why.
Yeah, we also see that. We
Right.
see how society has fucking pressured her into this.
Right.
To the fact where Thomason sees that too, and that's one of the reasons why we're so relieved when she escapes.
Right. And I want another one. I know I don't normally like sequels. I don't.
Yeah.
But I want another one.
Yeah, you do want something in the same vein. And that's why
Yes.
this whole month is going to be this. Because like why not? Like we need to continue this. I like this conversation.
Yeah.
I want more of this. And there's so many different types of witches and this view on women in power
Right.
that you get through this. And again, your witchcraft movies are the ones that do that so well.
Right. I need more.
Yeah.
I'm ready for more.
Well, we will get more.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that's right.
What are we watching next week?
Yeah, we'll get to it. So you enjoyed this week's movie. You
Yes.
had fun. Was this a nice little intro? I liked starting off here because it feels like, oh, this is the very first witches, like we're going through that. So
Right.
we're going to be dissecting a movie next week that's a little different. They
Okay.
are witch-like, but you could still call them witches, but they're their own mythology.
Okay.
And that's Hellbender from 2021. We're going to be dissecting that movie. Probably the most unique movie I've seen in quite some time.
Okay.
You know, I love movies with images and imagery and stuff that really like takes you into a world.
So I'm going to hate it, huh?
I don't know. I don't know. I find it very intriguing. I find it a very fascinating movie to watch. And so I can't wait for you to watch this next week. So that's what we're going to be covering next week. Go check it out. I think all the movies that we're going to be covering are on streaming. So you guys are definitely not going to have a hard time finding these.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait for you to see this. This is such the weird movie that it's so much different. Like, it is a lot of different. And I love how nowadays these movies are taking witches and stuff, this old school idea and this old school horror idea. And they're adding new elements and they're building upon it, you know, creating something new and fresh.
Right.
And that's what this movie does next week. But anyway, until then, when we figure out what the hell a hellbender is, and it's not a lizard.
Okay.
There's a hellbender. I'll talk about it on next week.
Okay.
But anyway, until then, I'm Lee Evans saying stay spooky.
And I'm Brittany. Stay horrific.
Ye old bye.
Just stop.
Buyeth?
Thanks for listening. To get a hold of us and submit your stories, fan mail, and death threats, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and nightofthehorrorfile.com. Our theme song was written and performed by John Brennan, used with permission. Find John at shopjb.bandcamp.com and at badtechno.com. If you like what you hear, leave a good review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show on your social media. See you next week.